Welcome to Emtron Training Part 47. In this training tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at working with our flex fuel based tuning within our Emtron ECU. Our flex fuel tuning integrates a flex fuel sensor. This allows us to measure the ethanol content we have in our fuel system, anywhere between 0% ethanol, pure petrol fuel, to 100% ethanol. Now, depending on what the ethanol content is going to be, the fuel and spark demands for the engine will change. We're going to learn how to integrate the sensor, how to actually calibrate it, set it up, learning how to work within the fuel and spark calibration strategies so that we have the proper fuel and spark time deliver regardless of whatever the ethanol content is going to be. We're also going to take a look at integrating the flex fuel based control into boost control strategy so that we can vary the boost level based on the ethanol content. There's a lot of things that we have to look at and talk about. Let's jump in so we can check all this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our flex fuel based tuning strategy within our Emtron ECU. Our flex fuel tuning allows us to vary the amount of ethanol concentration we have in our fuel system and adjust the fuel and spark timing according to that specific ethanol blend. It allows us the advantages of running a higher amount of ethanol fuel to be able to make more power out of our engine. And if we need, we can lower down what the ethanol concentration is. Let's say we're driving along, we start to run low on fuel and we're running on E85 or 85% ethanol and 15% petrol fuel. We need to go and fill up at a traditional gas pump that does not have ethanol. Well, if we're starting to fill up with, let's say, 93 octane out of the pump and we still have some ethanol in our fuel system, by the time we fill up our fuel system, our ethanol concentration might go from something like 85% to something like 10, 15, 20%. In this situation, we need to be able to account for that difference in the ethanol concentration because the fuel and spark timing will be completely different based on what that ethanol is moving to, the new concentration blend. With the ethanol flex fuel type sensor wired into our Emtron, we can account for the variations or deviations in our ethanol content as we're driving, and we'll find that we constantly have proper power delivery for our engine based on whatever that concentration amount is going to be. So the fuel and spark timing will be adjusted accordingly. It's actually relatively simple to calibrate and tune working within our flex fuel based strategy. There are some key things that we're going to be outlining in this video you need to pay attention to for the setup and configuration and the details in general of how to calibrate and tune within flex fuel based strategy. First thing I want to do here is illustrate how to go in and actually set up a flex fuel based sensor in terms of the configuration details, and then we'll move into talking about what we need to pay attention to for the actual calibration process. We'll find the fuel calibration process is pretty much seamless. We don't have to do much of anything. The tuning is really going to be found in the actual spark timing table, but we'll talk about that as we move through the tutorial a little bit further. First thing I want to do here is jump into config area. Under the config, we're going to go to channels and then input setup. This is where we're going to be setting up and working within the ethanol content sensor and actually dialing this in. So under vehicle here, in our vehicle tab, if we move down, I have it highlighted right now, it's already on ethanol sensor. We can see the abbreviation would be E85, what the flex concentration is going to be. Now a flex fuel sensor is going to be pretty unique in the way it's going to work. It's not like a traditional 0 to 5 volt sensor like a pressure sensor or a resistance based sensor like an air temp sensor. A flex fuel sensor is going to have internal circuitry as it measures whatever the ethanol concentration is going to be in our fuel system. It'll send out a frequency-based signal. 50 hertz is the equivalent of 0% ethanol or pure petrol fuel. 150 hertz is going to be the equivalent of 100% ethanol. And it's a linear scale between 50 to 150 hertz. We need to go in and set the ethanol concentration sensor, the signal wire, to a digital input to the Emtron so it can watch what's going on with that frequency signal and then convert it into an actual ethanol concentration amount. So if we move in here to this particular tab, we'll double click into the tab here. We can find if we go into our input source, we need to go and set this to whatever we've wired in, where we wired the digital input in for the ethanol concentration sensor. Let's go here and just click cancel. If I jump to digital inputs, I can actually take a look at what the raw frequency is going to be for the sensor I have wired into my Emtron right now. We're taking a look, if we move down here, digital input 7, we can see what that frequency is going to be reading here. It's approximately 60, 61 hertz. That's going to be the equivalent of around 10 to 11% ethanol concentration. Remember, 50 hertz is 0% ethanol, and then 150 hertz is the equivalent of the 100% ethanol scale. So 60 hertz is within that range of movement, and that's the equivalent of about 10-11%. So that's typical for a normal pump fuel here in the East Coast in the United States. You'll find, depending on where your location's at worldwide or within the US, the amount of ethanol content in your fuel can vary. Some places will have pure petrol fuel, other places will have 10%. In my location, 10% is normal, and that's what we're going to be finding here from the sensor. So right off the bat, that's what I'm going to be working with here. So let's go in. This is going to be found here, the raw signal coming from my flex fuel sensor in this digital 7 input here. So we're going to double click into our window, go to the input source. I'm going to go and set this to digital input 7, which is found right here, and I'm going to click OK. Now, a few additional things. We have to set up some configuration details. We have our input settings. We want to make sure this is going to be a Hall effect. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.